Hey, good evening, everyone.
Hello, how are you?
You know, Shaka, you're on mute.
Okay,
Miss
can you hear me now?
Yes, I've had this cough, and lately I've been into this thing of like looking at if I have a stomach ache, what is going on mentally, emotionally there. If I have a cough, where am I suppressing myself? Where am I not using my voice? Like I've been looking at stuff like that, and this isn't the topic of the show tonight, but what's there is right before getting on this call, I was finishing up a letter to the U.S. Attorney General about several inmates who are wrongfully convicted in jail and in prison, and the conditions of the jail and prison. Because I don't know if you guys saw that video that went viral where the guy had overdosed on fentanyl and he laid over the rail for over 3 hours in a Georgia jail. I mean, a Georgia prison. And inside of the prison, um, the guy that recorded the video, they've taken away all of his privileges and his life is at risk. So someone gave me a direct in to the U.S. Attorney General. So we're going to see. But I wrote this long report based off of that prison. And Matthew Baker Jr., where we've covered his story a couple of times, and another gentleman who they've been denying him his insulin, and they've been giving him insulin with water and things like that. So there's like 5 people that I named in this report that I want to see moved for their testimony regarding the jail and prison. So as I share it, my cough is going away. Um, but that's the conversation I've been in most of today. And it was taking me out as far as the coughs and everything else. So, whew, I'm
And
breathing.
which county is this? Oh, I'm sorry.
It's actually so 2 of the cases are Henry County, the Matthew Baker Jr. case, and the other 3 are Ware State Prison, which is in Waycross.
Yes, I need to connect with some folks that we have down in Waycross, some partners, to see if we can get some direct actions and some additional attention to amplify what's happening there.
That would be amazing.
Hmm.
Shaka's in DC. So Shaka has been guest co-hosting with me the last 2. This might be his 3rd week. And this is Ms. Miller, Miller,
Fanika.
Fanika Miller. I
Yeah.
couldn't remember because I couldn't remember if I pronounced it right or wrong on the pink carpet. But we hosted a pink carpet and a women's empowerment, and she was actually recognized and honored at that event. So that's how we met a couple of weeks ago. And she's also with Black Voters Matter. And Jasmine may or may not be joining us. There was a reproductive rights event. She's with the New Georgia Project. So she was on the highway, but she's probably going to pop in a little bit later. So we'll be on the lookout for Jasmine. Okay, guys?
All right. Okay.
So tonight's topic, Roe versus Wade and the impact on brown and black people. So my so with Roe versus Wade, Miss Miller, would you mind sharing with us about public policy and the impact on the youth?
Hmm. Yep. So first of all, thank you for having me on the show. And I'll just show, I'm not a policy expert, but I will just share um, the ways that we organize around public policy and how we connect those dots for folks, grassroots partners, activists, Black voters, um, to help them understand who pulls the lever of power in their community and how public policy impacts their lives every day. And getting in the room with elected officials so that we can understand how to best and better advocate for ourselves and for the resources that we need in our communities. When we talk about role, and so I'm the senior state organizer manager with Black Voters Matter, and we are a power building organization, and a Black power building organization. Our goal is to increase the capacity of grassroots organizations in communities that are already doing great social justice work, as well as to build Black political power. And we do that work independent of candidates, independent of any campaigns. We do it 365 days a year in communities where candidates, political parties, organizations often overlooked. So in every nook, crook, and cranny of the state of Georgia is where we organize, wherever there are Black people. And we do this work 365 days a year because the issues that affect Black folks don't start or stop on election day. So I wanted to center that. And healthcare is one of those issues that impact Black people every single day, whether that is health disparities, lack of access, lack of affordability. And by virtue of being a woman's right to choose and Black women's bodily autonomy, Roe versus Wade is an issue of healthcare. And that is how we message it. Um, I always like to give a framework for how we got here. If you're familiar with Newt Gingrich, then you know that he was one of the heavy hitters and power movers and shakers in the political sphere. When he was in office, Newt Gingrich launched a plan to recruit school board candidates. And there were conservative school board candidates that were recruited to run for office to win elections. They got 4 years of training. Then they were moved up to the state legislature. And then they moved up to the halls of Congress or the United States Senate. And for 50 years, that goal, since Roe versus Wade was enacted, their primary goal in a single issue was to overturn it, to restrict a woman's right to choose. But in the late 80s, early 90s, they implemented that plan for school board candidates, and that is what you see today. So I said that to say that folks are playing for the long haul, and we are always, it seems like, behind the curveball and on the defensive. Um, that wasn't done in isolation. Then we saw, in 2016, the election of the previous president, we saw record numbers of women vote for him to set the stage for the overturning of Roe versus Wade. And how does that impact us now? We see, restricted access. We see a trigger in at least 23 states, and in Georgia, we now know, that the heartbeat bill in Georgia, that was passed in a special session in 2019, where it was still legal in Georgia up to 20 weeks. Last week, that is no longer in effect. We are now under a 6-week abortion ban.
Yeah.
The 11th Circuit, lifted that stay. There are exceptions for instances of rape or incest. However, that's only if a police report is filed. Right?
No, I didn't know that, but what was there for me around the 6 week the heartbeat bill
Mm-hmm.
is people don't realize you usually don't find out you're pregnant until 4 or 5 weeks. So you really
Yes.
have 1 to 2 weeks to make a decision.
Mm-hmm.
It's really not a choice at that point. It's a decision.
Yep. Yep. It's not
So
a
yeah.
choice. And
Shaka, how do
so,
you feel?
Um, well, first of all, I commend the sister for her enormous efforts in trying to make change in the political realm, which is not primarily not my lane, but I'm always receptive to uh, receiving education and being more enlightened on uh, policies, public policies, and things of that nature. But in terms of Roe versus Wade, we all know that's part of population control because most of, this is actually targeted, at Black women and to continue to depopulate the Black population. And, with the slaughter of babies, with the exception of, there are exceptions with that, incest, sexual assault, and other issues But nevertheless, overall, just to, have the luxury of, terminating a human being is the way they have commercialized it. Like it's just okay to commit such horrific acts as such, and not knowing the how in depth uh child termination in the black community goes, because we know that those fetuses are just not disposed of. They're used for so many other things to keep other people alive, and to um, really make other people look like us and have characteristics of us by having, that genotype and phenotype and that genetic makeup and DNA into other people to give them longevity, or you know, and to have them maintain a healthy life, knowing that um, the murder of children is that is no different than drive-bys, but it's just done in private. So, but when it comes to public policy, my question would be, to get our people to go to the polls, which I personally just haven't seen any type of positive results that would do anything to you know um, get us on board in terms of reparations and um, among other things, to clean our communities up and to create an economic infrastructure. So my question would be, what strategy or what type of plan is used to hold our so-called politicians accountable, to have them to fulfill the agenda of our people, besides just voting to get somebody that looks like us, that talks a certain lingo that we always buy into, and which we never actually see the results, because these grassroots organizations are really the foot soldiers into our, not just our liberation and salvation, but to deal with the judicial system, the executive branches, and things of that nature, because of the child trafficking and um, the overcrowding of prisons and prison privatizations and wrongfully convicted, which has more like been commercialized and glamorized to some extent. And by me working with youth for so many years, that a lot of issues pertaining to the youth hasn't been addressed. All we see is the end results of their behaviors, and not taking a real in-depth look and looking at the personal traumas that they endure as children, and growing up in foster care, and doing so much abuse and lack of education in terms of knowing who they really are and where they come from, which results in um, this insane behavior. So um, once again, I would just ask that what type of strategy is used to hold them accountable, to ensure that it's just not another feel-good speech to get votes and to move the judicial wheel spinning, and musical chairs in the judicial system. By me being a product of that, and understanding how that particular uh, uh, how they put certain narratives, and what's the criteria to um, never get out of prison or to get into prison, that, I think there needs to be a more concrete and a more powerful force to penetrate and to really hold these people accountable to the nth degree to ensure that um, we don't continue to have this same song and dance every 4 years, and then we have to decide out of the worst who is the best out of the worst, who sounds the best, who gives the most false promises, uh, who can rock us to sleep for another 4 years while people feed off of our disenfranchised and our underprivileged brothers and sisters all across the planet.
But when we talk about reproductive justice and even Roe versus Wade, it's not just the underprivileged. This is a conversation about women and women's rights. And I understand that your take on it is if you carry the baby, and unless it's one of those things, it's murder. But what about in the instances where the condom breaks, the birth control contraceptives don't work? You have this is like, if you look at the numbers of how many women actually make it in childbirth, especially brown and black women, they kill us on these tables when we're delivering. So if you're looking at, do I carry a child or do I risk my life? We are dying on these tables. You know why? Because we're not raising up brown and black obstetricians and gynecologists and pediatricians. And so when we have to go to someone who's not of our culture, who don't understand our womb and our bodily makeup, and they think that they can just deliver a baby the same because it's a baby, it's not accurate. A woman is a woman, and if you are a skeletal remain, if they can tell your nationality, then what makes you not realize that somewhere in there, we're made different in a way, like our bone structure. And so if we're dying on these tables and we don't, it's a statistically showing that of brown and black women who have Caucasian doctors, that we die and correct me if I'm wrong, I want to say the number is like 6 times the amount of a white woman, like 6 times, not 1 out of 6, 6 times higher percentage, or 6 times higher that we're going to die than one white woman when giving birth. So is it
Right.
murder if you're sitting there and you're using the contraceptives?
Mm-hmm.
And what happens to your partner? I'm a 2-time single mother. I'm a 4-time single mother because I got triplets, and I'm a 100% single mother, right? And these are guys who are like basketball, the youth of the city's basketball coach and the other person. In saying that, I didn't see it coming from either one, but I'm a single mom. And somewhere in there, they laid down with me and had the choice to do something different other than pulling off a condom. And if they felt that they could pull off a condom, then they're not carrying a baby for 9 months. So how is it that we get held to account, but our male counterparts aren't being held to account? How is it that we're in a country right now where we don't have baby formula? There's no diapers. There's a shortage of all supplies when it pertains to babies and children, but we're passing laws or getting rid of laws like Roe versus Wade and opening up the door for I can't even talk. Help me out. Plessy versus Ferguson, which is what gave us the right for integration. What's next? Brown versus Board of Education. Where are they going to stop with setting us back? It starts with the women's rights, then it's going to be the brown and black rights. If you notice, the Asians got a hate bill, the LGBTQIA got marriage. When are they going to not set us back as brown and black people?
Well,
oh,
go ahead.
no, I was going to
So this is a conversation, not a monologue. So
Gotcha.
at any given time, Just break on in and say what you want to
Mhm.
say.
It's all of those things, right? Because you hit on so many different things. There is, a stigma. Back in the early 80s, Ronald Reagan promoted, the welfare queen, right? And so that stigma has continued to pervade and shape the narrative around Black women. The conservative movement, evangelicals, for those 50 years since Roe versus Wade was the law of the land, have waged campaigns, with billboards and talking points that Black women are, having, you know, all of these abortions, right? We are a small percentage of the population. We may have higher percentages, but white women have more abortions than every other demographic. Also, it, if we frame it as an access issue, Black women already experience systemic barriers to healthcare. In Georgia, there are 64 counties with no pediatrician, 79 counties with no OBGYN, 9 rural hospitals that have closed. Black women are traveling up to 40 miles just to see a doctor for maternity care, right? 40 minutes to 1 hour. We talk about health disparities. Black women have fibroids 3 times more likely than their white counterparts. And 13% of Black women in America, but only 38% receive abortions. Affordability. 8 out of 10 Black women are the breadwinners in their families, as you said, and single mom, at least 40%, earning at least 40% of their household income. And then almost 1 in 5 Black women live in poverty, right? So, and how does that show up? How many Black women can afford, a $10, um, box of birth control or formula that is expiring, or that's not on the shelves. So there's so many other different dynamics that factor into a woman's decision and a right to choose, what her family will look like. Where, as these restrictions come in, Black women who are experiencing economic hardship are less likely to travel out of state for an affordable, care and for an abortion. And, what is the impact of having your right to choose taken away from women who are already experiencing hardship?
Okay. Well, you know, everything that is being said is nothing but conspiratory practices. Um, these doctors, non-black, if you want to call it that, they know exactly what they're doing, and it's no accident or no mishap of medical practices that sisters are being literally murdered on those tables giving birth. This is something these are conspiratory practices, just as the baby formula shortage, which you'll never get me to believe that there's a shortage of
There's no
baby
shortage in
formula. But
Canada, and you can get the
yeah,
Canada through New York and through Detroit, but there's no shortage there.
right, or at the border, you know, you can jump a wall and get more formula, and to be honest, these things happen that are happening to us as a people. Uh, should and will probably and very, very soon bring us back together to be self-supporting, because they don't never mention the young brothers and sisters that go to Harvard, Yale, and Howard, and Dartmouth, and uh, uh, schools of that magnitude, so-called Ivy League colleges, that are doctors and surgeons, that still, once they go through all of that uh, uh, academia to become surgeons and doctors, still have to deal with uh, discrimination in terms of being able to go into these hospitals and become surgeons and doctors and uh, uh, you know practitioners, even in the areas of law. And so, um, We have to understand and come to a realization that, we all, primarily the black woman, because you all are the birthers of civilization. You know, you all gave everybody permission on a physical level to exist because everybody comes from y'all. And so, if you want to, get rid of the snake, you have to chop the head off. And so these are the things that they're doing, targeting, because black women are the least protected on the planet, although black men are targeted for termination and top of the food chain for extermination, but black women are the least protected and respected on the planet. You're always imitated,
Preach.
but can't be duplicated. And so these things, they know how to target certain people. They know how to target black women because y'all are not just highly divinely spiritual, but highly emotional beings that is easy to play on the heartstrings of black women. And so these, and to a point where we don't actually think or don't want to accept that we're being targeted in all areas. And they're using people that look like you and I to push these agendas to help rock us to sleep and to trick us into thinking that we're such a problem and we're so we're so uneducated, we're non-intelligent, we're hood rats and gold diggers and and things of that nature, welfare queens, and you can do the statistics on that. And even in Washington D.C. or in any inner cities, they will show that we're the problem in all the inner cities. But in D.C., they're more white drug addicts than they are black. But they only will show that small portion in the hood of those who have are struggling due to poverty, unemployment, being a convicted felon, and being discriminated. On top of that, they'll show that part of the deplorability in the black community, but they don't show the soccer moms and how long the lines are on CBS of them buying Percocets and Xanax and volumes, and because CBS is the new big pharma, is the new drug lord. So like I said, when it comes to making those decisions in terms of birth, I would never suggest that a sister would lay down and lose her life and then leave the child here without a mother. That doesn't make sense when you can always, make another run at giving childbirth, but you can't make another run in the cemetery. So once again, these are discriminatory practices done on purpose. There's no way you can go to law school and study the anatomy of us, and then when it's time to perform and perform medical procedures on us, all of a sudden you have all these sisters losing their lives on tables and stuff. That's no accident, that's no mistake. This stuff is systematically done,
It
by
was. It was.
the elite, and so this is why the people that look like you and I that are paid to push agendas to convince us, to go along, with genetic annihilation and the destruction of our youth and and the brothers and sisters, because we have never had the high rate of women that are incarcerated, that are being beaten by police and being stopped where to a point where a lot of them can't even conceive anymore based on that level of hatred towards black women, where black men have began to take comfort into disrespecting black women. So we have to, well, I know I do. I take a in-depth look and look at the whole picture in terms of what we're up against. So I'm just on another. I'm just on the battlefield, standing toe to toe with the forces of evil. But we have to understand that we are under attack. That somehow we got to get out of our minds that that at some point everything is going to be okay. That compassion is going to be given to us at some point, and it will never ever happen until we have that for one another.
Ms. Miller, what were you going to say? I know you were saying something, and I just wanted to say this real quick. Shaka,
Yeah.
one thing, when you were talking about them in medical school and that they've been able to research us, the reality is they don't research us in medical school. They don't even count us. When they
Oh,
passed the
okay.
abortion bill, they didn't count black women. They don't, like one of the senators said that the numbers would look different if we counted black women. You see the problem there?
Right. I got you.
Ms. Miller, what were you saying?
No, I just was saying that, all of it is about narrative shift. It's about making sure that we elect folks who are going to promote policies that do the least amount of harm to Black people. Recognizing that all skin folk ain't kinfolk, that some Black people are the worst purveyors of white supremacy, um, changing the narrative, but also it's going to take discipline from all of us around what we consume and what we allow to be promoted, the propaganda. Um, the thing that I love about the work that I do, and however, whatever, and however your activism manifests, is that we do it all the time. Folks like us that are engaged, we're always sounding the alarm and active. But we also have to make sure that we understand who controls the levers of power. It is bigger than who is president, right? We need federal protection, but we also have a triple trifecta in the majority of these states in our country and here in Georgia, where they are controlled by one party. And those policies that they promote at the state level are having disparate harm on us and touch us every single day, and even at the local level. Voting matters to policy. Voting matters to who is able to push and who has the resources to push the agenda. Voting matters to what we hear and what we consume and what we internalize about ourselves. And it certainly matters to the Black women who are literally dying to have babies.
Amen. And another thing about voting that I'll say is here in Georgia, everyone was so happy on election day. They were like, we went blue, we went blue, we're blue, we're blue, we're blue. But what nobody talked about was a couple of weeks after that, when you had the different legislators who decided that they wanted to go from being Democrats to Republicans. We are not blue. We are not a blue state. It seems like we're a blue state because at that moment in history, we were blue, but you can actually change your political party after being elected. So we had a bunch of Democrats. It was, correct me if I'm wrong, there were what, five of them who changed to Republican?
I
Was it
don't
four or
remember
five?
that in Georgia.
If
I
you
don't
look at
remember that.
Ballotpedia, on
Hmm.
Ballotpedia, there's been over uh hold on, I'm gonna pull it up right now
So we
because
may
I
have
know
had
it's been
some
over 100
defectors.
people
We may
total.
have had some defectors over time, but after the 2020 election, so blue at the top, but purple at the bottom, right? Because we still have a Republican-led legislature,
Mhm.
a governor's mansion, and all constitutional officers. And so just like, progress is blocked in the Senate, in, the United States Senate, then we also see a minority of folks who are trying to push through progressive policies being blocked here in Georgia.
I'm looking it up on Ballotpedia, yo.
I have really enjoyed y'all tonight. I do have to hop, and I hate to leave the conversation because it is so good, and I want to know what you find on Ballotpedia.
All right. Um, that's 2022. All right, I'll email you this show. Why can't I find it in
And so
Georgia?
that's one of the other things, the benefits for me is that I do my work independent of those political parties and those candidates. I just focus solely on Black people, Black voters, spreading Black love, building Black political power, and leaning into the culture. We don't shy away
Hmm.
from the race issue. Um, and my freedom is directly tied to the liberation of my other brothers and sisters. And so that's why I do the work.
Exactly. Exactly. Wonderful. Wonderful.
Thank you so much. Let me see. What is this? That's about the chamber partisan control. Uh, oh wait, there we go. There we go. Is this it? No, this is total seats, open seats. This is from the 2020 elections. There we go. Impact of special elections on partisan. Okay. Um, this is about the chambers of partisan control. Um, but let me see. Dang, I just read this, y'all. But you can go to Ballotpedia and you'll see incumbents defeated in general elections: 165 Democrats, 62 Republicans, 10 Independent. Um, okay, here we go. This is here we go. 86 of 99 state legislative chambers across 44 states held general elections on November 3rd, 2020. Partisan control flipped in two chambers. Republicans gained the majority in the New Hampshire House of Representatives and the New Hampshire State Rep. Well, let me see. Let's scroll down. I want to say it was 5 in Georgia, but it's something ridiculous. Like over so many years, it's been over like 100 people in Georgia who have changed parties. Let me ask that
Yeah,
question.
that's what she was saying, that it was over 100.
Okay. Public policy, partisanship, municipal elections. Why can't I find this? I'm gonna have to find it for the next show, y'all. I'm gonna have to find it.
Okay.
Let me
All
write
right.
that. So what's going on there at DC, Shaka? You see the car? Oh,
Uh, what's going on here?
yeah.
Basically the same. It's when it gets close to election time, you see a lot of different uh, people trying to push certain agendas, and it's a lot of heavy persuasion going on, and basically, for the black community, things have gotten actually worse. The hospitals are overflowed. It's a minimum of, I think, 4 to 6 hours to be seen, and some people have to stay in the emergency room for a couple of days, and um, they just recently had a doctor robbed in the parking garage. Guy was waiting for her in the car, and Howard University Hospital is more like a shelter. So the in the political on the political level, it's just a lot of dog and pony shows, and with no results. No results in terms of building trade schools and trying to assist our young people into that's it's two ways you can clean up crime in the black communities through trade schools and life insurance. You know, if we all had life insurance, every black person had life insurance, then this black on black killing would stop. There will be something major, done about this like yesterday, because it will break the insurance companies for all the murders and uh, crimes and heinous crimes and horrendous crimes that are created in our communities, where they want to paint the narrative that it's just the black youth, but it's a lot of things that plague Washington D.C. in particular. Um, our elderly are going through a lot of mental health crisis, because mental health is at a past epidemic level in DC. And
You see, but everywhere.
yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
it's really really bad, because especially with this wave of PCP that's been, and this K2 and this fentanyl that's been just ravishing, and creating, like a hurricane, you know, uh, uh, just devastating and wiping out the minds and hearts of our people, adults and children. Because you have a lot of children engaging in that drug subculture, through drill music, and which intensifies the hate. So um, it's just and I know this is everywhere. This is everywhere. So this is why I was saying about um, the accountability of our politicians. The sister touched on some very, very strong points. And, I read through the lines in terms of, where her heart and her loyalty lies at, and which is to see our people, come up from out of this, which I think will take place at some point. But at this point where we stand in now, we're kind of losing, but we're still fighting. So, that's it's good that you and so many other people like yourself that have developed platforms to allow voices to be heard that make clear sense, and that can penetrate and touch the hearts of our people, that they won't hear on regular news airways and media, that gives our people hope. It's shows like this that give people hope, that they see somebody that understands their plight and is willing to walk with them and walk beside them through this. So it's like, once again, it's always a blessing. It's always a blessing to be able to learn, because I really had my mental notebook down listening to you all. Because like I said, I stay in my lane. I don't try to be, I don't try to think I know something that I don't know. So, and I'm always willing to learn. And so it was, real inspirational and educational, of what you all shared.
I'm
So,
here still. I'm looking up some of these statistics. 37.1 deaths per 100,000 live births. The maternal death rate among Black women are 37.1 deaths per 100,000 live births, a rate up to 3 times the rate for non-Hispanic, white, and Hispanic women, the report said. The data also showed the maternal death rate among women 40 and over was 81.9 deaths per 100,000 live births, almost 8 times the number for women under 25. And then there's a question, and that was from CNN. It says, are Black women more likely to die of maternal causes? It says, using the new coding method, researchers found that 658 women who died of maternal cause in 2018, Black women fared the worst, dying 2.5 times more often than white women. I thought it was 6 times. It's about 2.5 to 3 times. 37.1 times, 14.7 deaths per 100,000 live births, while Hispanic women had the lowest rate of maternal mortality at 11.8 deaths per 100,000 live births.
Well, that's what they say. That's what's written down statistically, which I always question when they, doing the statistics. So I'm quite sure, like you had said before, it's probably far more than that. And to make it appear as if not a wide margin between us and others, they probably have to format it like that. But like you said, and you were basing stuff just not only on statistics, but what you actually feel in your spirit. It's far more than that, and we know that. I don't trust them with statistics. Period.
Well, it rose from 2007 to 2011. In 2007, 11.8% of white women died while giving birth, 34% Black women. 2011, 12.5 white women, 42.8 Black women.
That's all. That's almost every other sister.
That's out of 100,000. But yeah, that's a high number.
Very high, very high.
And that wasn't 42.8 period. That was 42.8%, which makes it a high number.
Yes, very high, very high. So like I said, these things, these are conspiratory practices. No matter how we may want to view it, or how a lot of us actually have been trained to believe that everything certain people say and do is right and exact, and everything that we do when we look at our own reflections is wrong and questionable. Um, I just don't put it past. I know they adjust the numbers. They do it in everything else. So
here's the deal about those numbers too. No, thank you. People forget to look at the population of brown and Black women, men, or women and men in jails and prisons. But when it comes to this data and information in the census bureaus, we are counted inside of that census population. So that's how they're able to skew numbers, because they can say 100,000 when only about 1,500 women inside of a prison that hosts 3,000. You might have 15 of those 3,000 who gave birth, but they sit in a town where there's only 5,000 people as a population, but the prison accounts for 3,000 of the 5,000. So those numbers are going to look a lot different. Or they put a prison in a city where there's like a prison in Atlanta where there's a couple of million, and then you have an account for about 1,500 to 2,000 people sitting in a federal prison inside of a city that has what's Atlanta up to? What are we up to? 5 million, 4 million, something like that.
Wow.
But people, and when you're in jail and prison, you're counted into the census.
And taxes. And taxes. And taxes.
This can't be right. Atlanta, that can't be right. Let me say Atlanta and the surrounding. Oh, I was all wrong. Wait, they must not be talking about the surrounding areas, because they don't even have us at 1 million. They have us at 400, and there we go. Atlanta metropolitan area, 6 million. Atlanta's only right under 500,000. within the city limits.
Right, right.
Metro was 6 million. I was like, this can't be right. So, but I say that to say we sometimes don't realize that in those numbers are prisoners. In those numbers are people who are on probation and parole. But in those numbers, those same people don't have the right to vote. In those numbers, those people don't have the right to resources such as the food stamps, um, the Section 8. They don't have access to it because they have felony convictions. But in those numbers, they count to be able to determine who's going to be senator or governor or a congressional member um, in those numbers.
Because they give now when someone is if just say in DC they don't have a prison.
Hmm.
So if you're shipped to another state,
You
when
count in
they
that.
do their yeah, you considered a citizen in that town.
Hmm.
And so, the government will that town will receive funding. This is why a lot of these prisons are in these little hick towns or always in these rural areas and up in the mountains and stuff like that, because that's the primary source of revenue for them, and then you have all the family members that are correctional officers of generations and generations of correctional officers. So when you're counted as a citizen in that town during your stay, being captive in those prisons,
Yep.
then that federal funding that they get will provide food stamps, TANF, Section 8 vouchers for those poor hillbillies and other people that are in those rural areas, and they begin to come up and create businesses and things of that nature, because once again it's a business. It's not about whether you're innocent or guilty. It's about whether you are a liability or asset in society, how they consider you a liability or asset. So
That's
when you
true.
yeah, when you spoke of that, the women being pregnant, or giving birth in prison, I know the numbers are much more higher than that.
I just
Much
said
more higher than that.
I didn't Google those. But one
Yeah.
thing I do know is I actually some years ago I participated with the Google Goody Hackathon. And while participating with Google Goody Hackathon, we had to choose a team to be on and figure out ways to utilize technology and marketing to help that app. Like we had to develop an app. So I participated with Atlas Atlanta, which is it does graphs and pie charts and it analyzes data across the state of Georgia, but it's called Atlas ATL, I believe it was Atlas something. Anyways, or Atlas Georgia. I don't know. It was Atlas something. But anywho, this app, this program, we could see that the rural communities were more likely to utilize to go to school on a Hope Scholarship. They were more likely to have food stamps. They were more likely to have WIC. Like the numbers were alarming. Like it wasn't like by 1%. It was like without these resources. And the thing that people fail to realize is a lot of these programs were created by the Black Panther Party. So
Right.
the food pantries, WIC, these were Black Panther. If I ain't mistaken, wasn't WIC a Black Panther Party program too? Women, infant, and children.
Yeah, but it wasn't labeled WIC until the government took
Right. So the government took
control
over
of it, because they had the
because it wasn't
breakfast
a government
program as
program.
well.
Yeah,
You
it
know.
wasn't a government program, and they had the daycare, the child care as well. What's that? They had the
Yeah,
child.
and education. It was a lot a lot of work that they put in, and so that's why when I do my podcast, that I always give honor to those, because a lot of them that have created those programs are still in prison from the '60s.
Oh yeah.
And so and a lot of them are in hospices and the whole nine. So, um, it's a whole lot. It's a whole lot of work. It's a whole lot of work that needs to be done. But once again, like I said, you have lit the spark to ignite, so many other people to, share their views and to touch the hearts, because touch the heartstrings. Because I mean, when you all were talking, I was acting like I was just a regular viewer because I was just, taking in the info and being educated. And so it's extremely important. It's extremely important for shows as such as these, that you have gracefully and unselfishly, stood above and rose above the ashes to create such a platform and to be able to have people to share. Not only do they help us, but they help themselves as they're using these platforms to actually vent and say the things that they can unable to normally say. Um, trying to fight to be politically correct all the time. So,
Right.
it's a
And you
blessing.
and we have a lot of choice words that we can use on this show too. There's a few that we can't say, but we can get away with a lot. And I just want to share this. I don't know if it's happening next week or the week after, but in August we will be available to view on the Roku platform, just like we're available to view on YouTube and Facebook. So I just wanted to really say that. And with the Roku platform, there's no censoring. So yeah. So I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful for the opportunity. I'm grateful for our Black media allowing us to utilize this platform to talk about things that impact us in a very straight and uncensored way. And I'm grateful that they give us the opportunity to just share about our community in the day to day. So with that, thank you, Shaka. It's always been great. Robert brought Gregory out. So he's running around with a blue mouth and scaling the sofa. So it's time.
Okay.
It is time. So thank you again. And see you next week.
Bye.
Thank you. All right.
like that.